Let's do it. All right, purple hair. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to introduce my friend Destiny. I'm going to read your bio, and then we're going to take a seat on the stage, and we're going to have a lovely conversation. Destiny, how do you, Herndon? Herndon?
We'll go with that. I'll answer to it.
No, say it. How is
Herndon.
it? Herndon.
Herndon-De La Rosa.
Herndon-De La Rosa. I get them all wrong. Destiny Herndon-De La Rosa. She's a founder of New Wave Feminists. She, which is a politically independent and religious agnostic feminist group that promotes consistent nonviolence from the womb to the tomb and champions fertility awareness as a reproductive right. Destiny will share what needs to happen beyond the ballot box, how to remove shame and stigma, and what it looks like to support a woman when she needs it most. In addition to her work with New Wave Feminists, Destiny is a regular op-ed contributor to the Dallas Morning News. Welcome, Destiny. Here we go. You know what? Yeah, I think we're climbing up here. I'm going to grab that other mic. Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh, you got old knees. Okay.
You know, I'm gonna give it my mom got a bladder sling. That's how I'm going to start this. And so I get so jealous because she jumps on trampolines. She would have hopped up on this like in 2 seconds. Whereas those of us who have had multiple babies, like, oh, you can't hear my joke about peeing my pants. Sorry. I'll make sure to do that. Anytime I have to hop up on a stage, I'm like, please don't pee your pants. Please don't do that. I have 4 kids.
Oh, now that we're closer, should we move? If we move up here, we can leave the screen on.
Doesn't bother me.
Is that better?
I'm going to fall off the stage now. Oh, yeah, it's not in our face. This is perfect.
It's not in our face at all.
Okay.
Destiny, I'm going to invite you to actually share a little bit more about yourself. You might be the first purple hair feminist that some people have ever met.
And there's so many of us, so that's sad.
And I'd like you to just introduce yourself a little bit, the work that you've been doing, and then we're going to get into what it looks like to actually raise up grassroots activism. I think that's one of the reasons that we wanted to bring you here is because you've done a tremendous job of building something with very little. You know, very little resource, very little, very little, and you've built a lot. So I just want to have you introduce yourself, and we can talk about what it takes to really get stuff moving.
Yeah, so I guess where do I start? The very little part. New Wave Feminist was a MySpace page that got completely out of control. What do you need me to do? Where? Do I look like that lady that went to Pakistan that was like, give me $20,000? Okay, you're right. The brand is important.
Is that better? Is she still?
Eh? Okay. And I'm just going to chill, so I'm away from light. Okay, so New Wave Feminist started like 16 years ago as a MySpace page, and it basically was, you know, I'm a feminist. It was I was in my 20s. I started seeing how the sexualization of women, our young girls, everything in this hookup and porn culture, and then being reiterated constantly that we are not enough, right? Like from the time we're very, very young, we get those messages, and I'm the mother of 2 girls and 2 boys. And so I thought, you know, I don't want my daughters to grow up in this type of world. And then I was like, I really don't want my sons to grow up in this type of world, like where they're not recognizing the human dignity of every person. And so I started just because I had some time on my hands, and it was easy to make a MySpace page back then. For those of y'all who are too young for that, ask your parents what that was. It was like pre-Facebook. And so I ended up kind of thinking, okay, I don't think this is allowed, but I'm pro-life. That's a big part of my story because my mom got pregnant with me when she was 19 years old at the University of Texas at Austin. She had to drop out of school. She, you know, moved back home with my minister grandparents who are wonderful people, but it was like, hey, I'm single, I'm pregnant, and, you know, I need support. And thankfully they were there. That's why I'm here, because they were there, because she had that support system. So then fast forward to 16 years later, I found myself pregnant, and I was like, okay, I've been on the other side of this. I've been the unborn child that could have easily been terminated. She was in a liberal college town. It was 10 years after Roe, but I knew, okay, I have to get this kid to the starting line. Like, that's what I have to do. And so I had 9 months to figure out what all of my options were. At the same time, I have a lot of friends in high school who are finding out they're pregnant, and there's this ticking clock because abortion was an option for them, and they're terrified, and they're feeling so pressured and vulnerable, and then those messages come back around, right? The "you're not enough" messages that we've been receiving our whole lives. From the second you go to the grocery store with your parents and you see the glossy cover and it's, your hair's not shiny enough, your teeth aren't white enough, your skin's not clear enough, based on the generation, your butt's not big enough or your butt's too big, like, we're never gonna be good enough, right? And then you look inside the pages as you get older, and it's late stage capitalism. It's here's all the junk that we can sell you to make you enough. Oh, but by the way, if this stuff doesn't work, your sexuality, your desirability, this is what's gonna make you enough. And so we create this toxic stew of young women who then feel like, okay, I want connection, I want love, I want to be powerful, right? And as feminists, like, we need that type of, like, to understand the feminine genius, but it gets distorted, and it ends up being like, our sexuality is kind of the main thing. So then, of course, you end up getting pregnant, because when you buy into this sex kitten model of how to live, and a guy says, well, condoms don't feel good, well, I want to do everything so that I'm desirable, so then you end up pregnant. And it is so easy to sell young women abortions in that state, because if they already feel like they are not enough, then it becomes almost like the merciful option. Like, I need to have an abortion, I can't put a child through this existence. And so I know that was my experience. I know the reason that I have a 24-year-old child right now is because I had an amazing family that supported me, and they were the calm in the middle of that chaotic storm. So when I started New Wave Feminist, I was like, I don't know if this is allowed, but like, I'm pro-life, and I'm just as pro-life as I am a feminist, and these things to me are so seamlessly consistent. If I believe in bodily autonomy, then your bodily autonomy should exist from the moment your body first exists. That's like common sense. If I believe in using my rights and privilege to stand up for the vulnerable, whether it's people with, mental health issues or housing insecure or any of these other things that a lot of radical feminists will use their privilege to support, but then when humans are at their weakest and most vulnerable, we say, in your vulnerability, we can use violence against you. That's patriarchy. Like, and when we talk about patriarchy, these systems in history where they have been designed for men and by men, it makes our fertility a liability, but ultimately a big part of it was women were treated as property for a lot of history, because I'm bigger and stronger, then I can use violence against you, I can silence you. And so how is the current radical feminist movement not doing that exact same thing, adopting this might makes right mentality when it comes to our unborn children? And I would say that they're placating patriarchy. That's what they know, that they can't really get that equity that they want in a society that does not accommodate our fertility or motherhood. And so it's like, well, we'll do the abortion thing. And that way maybe we can hope at getting some equality by basically making our bodies fit into a male normative world. That's not feminism. You're playing patty cake with patriarchy. You're not actually like smashing it. So anyway, so the thought pops into my head, I don't think this is allowed. And then I was like, wait, this is feminism. Like, I feel like it's rooted in rebellion. Like, I'm gonna do it. So Tom from MySpace didn't block me or anything. And then it took off, and we found a lot of women. To this day, we have a lot of women who will say, I am not a feminist, but they're so freaking feminist. Like, you probably, I'm like, you run your own thing and you do all this stuff, but like, that word has become so synonymous with being pro-sex work and pro-pornography and pro-abortion, and these things that are really, if you, I don't know if I can say douchebag because we're in a church, but like, if you took like the douchiest guy and you were like, what type of feminism would be your ideal? That is exactly what they're giving them. So like, if your Free the Nipple campaign is also gonna bring guys who would go to a wet t-shirt contest, you might be doing feminism wrong. Like, you might not be understanding the inherent value and the dignity of women. Anyway, you asked one question.
This makes you really popular, I'm sure, in all the secular feminist circles. I mean,
they're huge fans, let me tell you. They love it.
And on that note, I'm actually going to ask you to share just a little bit about what that is like. You one of the things that I've always really loved about you, we've had a lot of conversations, and we really pushed each other on certain issues and said, we're not totally aligned on that one yet. We're still working kind of through it. But you have always valued walking lines and being able to have conversations with people who, you'd love to start a conversation with somebody who completely disagrees with you. Like, I watch your little face just go, oh, here we go. Like, you gotta light up. So you're like, oh. So tell me about just that art, I guess, of dialogue. It isn't art.
I think it's from Texas. I don't know. Is anybody here from Texas? Okay. So we have this skill too.
Texas skill.
It's a bless your heart skill. And so maybe anybody from the South can do it, or maybe you can learn it. But my favorite thing is finding someone who disagrees with me on everything and finding that one thing we're going to agree on and then expounding on that. And I also think it's genuine. I do think it's a genuine Texas thing you learn to do, where it's like, I truly want to listen to you. Like, if I'm going to talk about the human dignity of women, the human dignity of the unborn, I have to see your human dignity. I have to understand you as a person and value you as a person. And so when you come at me with, I always joke that no matter where I'm speaking, here or at a very, liberal-leaning pro-choice thing, which they don't always hand me the mic, but I find a way to sneak it in. But there's something for everybody to hate, but there's also something for everybody to love, because there is going to be common ground, I think, when we break out of this binary of, you're far right religious, conservative, like all of these things we put on it, or you're far left and you hate men, and most people are not that. Like, there's so much beauty and nuance and gray in that space. And so when I find somebody that disagrees with me, and especially if they're passionate, I love the fact that we've got that in common. We're both radical about some of our beliefs. And so let's have a conversation about it and show me your heart. Why do you feel that way about this? And 9 times out of 10, when it comes to the abortion issue or sex work or anything, it is coming from a place of woundedness, right? So either it's their own experience or somebody they love dearly, and if they just hear pro-life, they think, well, I'm judging them, I'm attacking them. And when I say that's not at all what I'm doing, I'm judging these systems and attacking these systems that create a society where that person you love felt like their only option was to sacrifice their child to fully participate in society. And like, that's heartbreaking. Can we fight against those systems? Like, we don't fight against people, we fight against systems. And I do think that's why we actually have quite a few pro-choice followers that support our work, because, there was it was a meme that went around a while ago. It was a quote from this Catholic nun who's very pro-choice, and she's like, it's really easy to love the child in the womb, but what about, they list all these other things and challenging us. And I rolled my eyes at it at first, and then I'm like, that's true. I'm consistent life ethic. I believe in womb to tomb being free from violence, and I like my consistency being challenged. But we also have to challenge back. If you're pro-choice and not pro-abortion, which most people will tell you, I'm pro-choice, I'm not pro-abortion, okay, what are you doing to make sure that there's funding for, people who choose to continue their pregnancies? Are you addressing this on your college campuses where young people feel like they have to drop out of school? I am 41 years old. The fact that that has not changed since my mom was at University of Texas in '83, that is an indictment of the feminist movement. Like, I'm sorry, but you are not working towards the equity that my mother needed. I certainly, outside of my family didn't have that type of support. And young women today don't have that type of support. And I just think that when we take it away from, again, attacking people or personal choices that are being made, and more look at the systems and say, can we join together and fight these systems that have hurt people we love very much? I think that's why my eyes light up, because I'm like, ooh, we're about to get to that point. I'm about to make a new friend. One of my favorite quotes, I think it's Abraham Lincoln, I'm not sure though. For my favorite quote, I should know. I'm
Abraham Lincoln.
I'm 99% positive it's Abraham Lincoln. I'm only saying that because now you quote somebody and then it turns out it wasn't them at all. But I think it was Abraham Lincoln, and it's like, the best way to get rid of an enemy is make them your friend. And that is very much a Texas thing, and that's definitely the way that I talk to people in my community who I disagree with stuff on.
Oh, bless your heart.
Bless my heart.
Dustin and I, we actually get along on most every issue. We're not going to focus on the ones that we're like, I'm not sure yet. But we both call ourselves feminists.
Yeah.
And I think our feminism is fairly closely aligned because it's a sex realist feminism, and it is very much the body deserves respect and the equity of women in culture and society. Like, I think we agree on most things, and so it works really well. It is fascinating to me. I just have to note the aesthetics of feminism.
I took my septum ring out. I didn't wear it.
You don't have your septum ring
I don't have it in. So you know
usually
what
I know
happened? This man came up to me once at a conference like 10 years ago, and he goes, "Oh, you know, down," he was from somewhere. He's like, he goes, he goes, "You know why we do that to cows, so we can pull them around? Do you let people pull you around by that?" And immediately I was like, this is the least feminist piercing I have. I can't wear it now. And I want to tell every feminist with a stupid nose ring, like, that's so they can pull us around, just FYI. We should. And then I also got this pierced at the same time, and I was like, I actually have the same piercings as a cow.
Oh gosh, it's right.
I know.
Right,
And
it's an identification tag.
it just, so I don't wear it out anymore. But yes. It's mad at me. They're like, no, this is the brand, dude. Like, you gotta go back to it.
You are the national figurehead.
National purple figurehead. So it is so stupid. I'm over it. I'm over it. But it is something where I show up at a protest at an abortion clinic, and the escorts come out and say, "We're so sorry about those crazies over there." And I'm like, "No problem." And then I go grab the bullhorn from the crazies, and they're like, "What is happening?"
And you start escorting the ladies in and walking them around the corner.
And they're taking them to get actual resources and help. Yeah. So no, it's an asset sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point for us to just kind of recognize that we can find ways to, I love what you said about finding that one thing you agree on. And I will say, you know, they usually don't give you the microphone willingly at these events, but I have found that there are certain places where your aesthetic, your look, or your credential or your authority will give you the microphone. And take it when you get that moment. I actually had the opportunity, it was the Family Medical Education Consortium in New York State several years ago, and I sat in a workshop of abortion providers, and I thought I was just going to listen in on it, and then they put us in small groups to discuss our abortion experiences. And I was like, holy moly, like, what do I do now? And I don't know, Holy Spirit thing, but it genuinely came to me that I told, like, they were talking about stories of women that needed abortion access and how terrible it was that it was being restricted, and the story of my older sister who got pregnant in college and didn't have any support, and, you know, had to hide her pregnancy and ended up choosing life, but how stigmatized her choice for life was, and how her stigmatized, you know, like, I used all the buzzwords. I used every single thing from that workshop and reversed it on a woman choosing life.
Woo!
And they gave me the microphone. And I had this moment, and it was funny because there was one other person in the room, and I recognized him right away. I knew him, like, that is a pro-life plant. I saw him, and he was just like lips tightly pursed, trying to figure out how to, like, not get kicked out of the room. And as I started, and at first he had his arms crossed, and I was doing the whole thing, like, nobody would talk to her, and everybody, like, how horrible this was, and professors and everyone was being really mean to her. And then when she made the decision for life, how it got even harder. And, like, how, you know, the care was so stigmatized, and she, as a young woman, like, it was just very difficult being unmarried. And I watched that one guy, like, uncross his arms and, like, sit forward and start smiling, and, like, he was, like, he realized what was happening. And I kind of watched everyone else just, like, get really confused. But it was my medical credential, and it was my ability to say, as a lactation consultant, I've dealt with this, like, as a, like, I used my credential to its fullest in that position. And I really advise all of you to lean in and figure out, well, how does your voice matter on the other side? And use it. Help them to see the story flipped.
And I would say that sometimes even just playing dumb, not having any credentials, because y'all, I'm stupid. I went to beauty school, I'm dyslexic, I failed 7th grade. Like, so me, I'm really able to play the, oh, but what about, so I had a very similar thing happen at the Women's Convention. So we were part of the Women's March in Washington in 2017, got kind of very publicly removed as a sponsor from it, and got a lot of media attention, so everybody knew my dumb purple hair. And then I go the next year, they had a women's convention in Detroit, and so I was sitting in there, I walked into one, it was called Abortion Stories, How to Tell Your Abortion Story, and I was not gonna be a disruptor. I genuinely was curious.
Me too. Same workshop, I think.
So, okay, yeah, so there was pro-life people in this room, and I remember, I don't know if it was that one though, but there was pro-life people in the room, and so the sponsors clocked it immediately, and they were like, if you came here to disrupt, we're gonna remove you. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's so funny, because it's a bigger pro-life person than me, so they weren't thinking about me, they were actually talking about this other person, and I was like, haha, like, you've taken the attention, so I'm over here, like, and they don't realize I'm there. So what ended up happening was this woman was talking about her abobo, because if we make abortion cute, then it's gonna be acceptable. She talked about how she had a flask that she was selling at her Etsy shop that said, "I love my abobo." And I was like, the fact that you straight up know that post-abortive women often fall into other addictive behaviors because of the trauma of that, and you are monetizing it, is horrifying. So I listen, I'm very respectful, I listened to the stories, and then there came this moment where they had to ask questions and nobody had a question, and they were like, "Do we have any other questions?" Nobody. And like, "Any other questions?" And I'm like, I'm like, yeah, okay, like, this is my higher power being like, yeah, I've cleared the slate, here you go. And so I was like, yeah, actually I have a question. So I've heard a lot about the stigmatization of abortion and how we can't tell stories of stigmatized abortion, but as females, that's often part of somebody's abortion story. It is being coerced, it's being pressured, it's not having the resources you need. So is there a place in the abortion storytelling panel to be more nuanced and tell stories that maybe aren't positive? That's all I asked. So not even like a good pro-life question. I played dumb, I did Socratic method, I was like, here, let me just ask a question. And the woman looks at me and goes, "Do we have any other questions?" And by the way, you don't, because you asked 3 times, so you don't. And then a woman in the front row goes, "No, that's actually a really good question, can you answer that?" So this is a pro-choice person that says that, who she actually worked for Gulf Coast Planned Parenthood. She wanted to know the answer because she sees women who have these experiences, right? And then she goes, "Well, I think we can talk about that after. Like, I don't think we need to talk about it right now." Somebody from the other side of the room. Again, none of the pro-life plants that were in there. Like, it was pro-choice people who said, "No, like, could you please answer that? Because, yeah, not everybody wants to shout their abortion in this super positive way." Like, and I just remember thinking, like, so I'm agnostic, full disclosure, but I did not catch on fire when I stepped in here, so I'm clean enough. So I think the problem is, I believe in a higher power, and I wrestle with my higher power a lot. So when I have that moment of something nudging me, start the MySpace page, ask the stupid question, like, talk to this person that you don't think you're gonna get along with. Anytime I'm obedient to whatever, that's the closest thing I have to faith. That's my mustard seed, y'all. But anytime I do it, it does seem like really big stuff comes from that. And we had a meetup in Dallas one year where a woman from, because you don't always even just have to get the microphone, a woman from the T Fund, which is the Texas Education Abortion Fund something. Anyway, they pay for abortions. They're busing a lot of women out of state right now in Texas. She came to one of our meetups, and immediately I knew, okay, we have somebody here who's just doing intel and trying to collect information. They're being the me, yep, which is fine. Yep. So then afterwards, I was like, thank you so much for coming. And she goes, "Could we talk for a little bit?" So we ended up talking for like a full hour after this meetup. And I said, "Okay, so we disagree on a bunch of stuff, but can I ask you, when you have somebody call who does not have the resources for an abortion, what are the odds they have the resources to continue a pregnancy? And they might want to, right?" And she goes, "Well, we haven't talked to a social worker, so I think they figure that out." And I said, but do they? Are they going deep enough? Because this is actually a way that symbiotically we could work together. If you have somebody who does want to continue the pregnancy, you send them to us, we can get them the resources to do that. Saves you guys money, so you can pay for only the wanted abortions and stuff like that. Like, could we work together on this? And she said, "I'm gonna have to think about it. I think we do all that." I'm like, okay, cool. So then a week later, I see a Facebook event. I don't know why I went. It was a Democratic Socialist meeting that was happening in my area. And I was like, Winston Churchill was a Democratic Socialist. How bad could it be? I'm going to go to this. And again, it was that prompting. I was like, I could do other things with my time that night. But I went. And I walk in and I see the woman from the T Fund. Second time I've ever seen her in my life. I have, like, what are the odds she was there? And I'm thinking, okay, I'm also not here to be a disruptor. I want to talk to people. Maybe I feel like I'm supposed to be here for some reason. And so I don't really tell anybody what I do, but I have purple hair, so nobody is worried. And then as they're doing this panel, it gets to the end, there's this Q&A happening, and somebody was talking about abortion access, and she goes, we are very proud to provide abortions to as many people as we can and the people who need it, but I'm also going to bring up the point that maybe not everybody actually wants to have an abortion, and some of them just don't have the resources to continue their pregnancy, and so we have to make sure that we're actually helping people if we're pro-choice and not literally, she's saying my words verbatim, and I'm like, this is the coolest ish that's ever happened, because I was like, had I grabbed the mic, had I asked the question, I would have looked like I was being a disruptor. But by having one conversation with one person and just getting that thing that noodles around in their head at 3 a.m., which is my favorite hobby. I love finding the one thing that's gonna mess with your head. Like, oh, you care so much about animals and you're vegan. Well, let's talk about the unborn child's human development. Like, I'm gonna mess with your ability to sleep. And so having those type of conversations with people when they're presented in front of you and doing it in a loving Texas way, and then all of a sudden, she's saying it, and when it was coming from her, that whole room took it seriously. They took it as a call to action, and it was a really beautiful higher power moment.
And Destiny, I think it's interesting to note that you actually do have, you know, I would say they're genuine friendships with people on the exact opposite side of the issue. I know, you're friends with Robin Murray.
Robin, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say Robin. Robin is one that comes to mind. She's she wrote the abortion handbook, actually, on how to act.
Post-Roe abortion handbook.
Her book is actually the post-Roe abortion handbook, like how to access abortion after Roe. So not exactly, you know, friendly on the pro-life issue, but I think it might have been your relationship with her that opened up an interview with me. Robin and I had a sit down one time in Minneapolis, very pro-choice journalist, and we had a 2-hour conversation where we talked about her home births and her like birth equity and her breastfeeding rights and like all of these things that she is so passionate about. And we talked about, you know, body literacy and how true feminism, like it's truly like the highest form of misogyny. We talk about this all the time at Guiding Star, like misogyny is the destruction and alteration and suppression of a woman's natural body. Like that is the ultimate form of misogyny, when you demand that a woman's body pays the price for societal needs and desires. And Rob and I had this long conversation, and at the end of this conversation, about 2 hours in, she just kind of sighs, and she leans back in her chair, and she crosses her arms, and she just sat there, and she didn't say a word. And she's like, you're really close. She's like, I just can't go there, but you're really close. And I remember thinking, we can find allies. Like we
used to joke who was gonna flip first. She thinks she's gonna flip me to her side. She's not. I think we're gonna flip her to our side.
I think we're gonna flip her to our side because we have the body. And she has a female body, and she lives in it, and she's experiencing it.
She's the most amazing person. She's actually the one, she confessed to me years after the Women's March. She was the one who blew the horn on us.
You guys? She got you kicked out?
She's the one who told all that, because when we applied, we said, while we're anti-abortion, here's all the things we agree with for the Women's March, and so they accepted us. And then Robin goes, I called up Jessica Valenti and like Roxanne Gay. I mean, like she let all the feminists know that we were gonna be there. She's like, so yeah, I was the one who got you kicked out, and I was like, well, thank you. Like that was
that gave you amazing press.
Like it was the best thing that ever happened. I will say, she also told me that there's a freckle on my back that looks cancerous. This was a couple years ago, and I'm like, you're probably accidentally gonna save my life. I still haven't gotten it checked out, but it was like Robin Marty probably everything she says to me, I'm just like, yeah, you're gonna save my life somehow or enhance it. Yeah. I think she's a beautiful person. She has her own personal story. She has people she loves. She's worked in the abortion industry. Like there is a lot of reasons for her to think the way she does, but again, I think it's a matter of like, how do we humanize human beings? Like, if a person does not see you recognizing their human dignity, they're not going to listen to you when you talk about the human dignity of the unborn child or the migrant mother. You know, these other groups that we're trying to advocate for, like, they're not going to be there for that because they feel like I'm just a means to an end. You're not really seeing me as a whole person. And so the more that we can truly love the people that we encounter in like an authentic way and genuinely be interested in them and their heart and where they're coming from, like it sets the foundation for really amazing friendships. And then when you disagree, like you said, you and I disagree on a number of things. Like Robin, Marty, and I obviously disagree on a number of things too. But I'm always challenged to think outside of the box that way. And sometimes I just end up disagreeing with you more because I'm like, oh, I got really good arguments. When I was awake at 3 a.m. thinking about that thing you said, I came up with a good zinger. I'm gonna have to message Leah at 3 a.m.
We Marco Polo with each other, and I'm like, I see, like, oh, Destiny.
But it's something that it enhances my own beliefs, right? It solidifies where I believe, and then I'm able to have very logical conversations that aren't just knee-jerk or emotional because I don't have a defense for it, but I feel a particular way, and so then I'm just gonna, you know, it actually makes it so that I'm able to calmly, you know, be like, yeah, you think that, here's why I think this, but like, where can we agree on these issues?
Yeah, so this, we want to leave you guys, like, as we kind of, wrap up the rest of the day, like, I do want to leave you guys with how activism happens, though. I mean, we still have a little bit of time here. We're going to talk about this, and you mentioned the migrant mother, and so I want to get to your most recent activism and how you were kind of motivated to do that. I think everybody here has probably got a reason that you're here. I don't know what the activism is that's going to come out of this conference. I really don't know what you guys are all going to leave and do. I'm hoping it has to do with the female body. I think that for me is really when Jamie used the term yesterday, bioevangelism, I was like, oh, that's exactly what we do. It's bioevangelism. It's such a good term. So I think, I hope that's the area that your activism leads you to, because then we're like sisters lockstep, like I understand your activism. Yours is a little different, I mean, but it's along the same exact veins of human dignity of the person. Tell us about what has evolved in that human dignity and loving women as a feminist, what that has meant.
Yeah, so, in the beginning of New Wave Feminist, it was speaking at colleges and trying to just brainwash the next generation so that my daughters don't get lost to it. And I was like, yeah, we'll make this a thing and we'll have cool stickers and stuff, and then everybody's going to be into pro-life feminism. And then COVID happened. And during COVID, we had been doing summer campaigns down at the border with helping pregnant migrant moms who had arrived in the States and needed support, a lot of pregnancy supplies and things like that. And we had done it for a couple years, and then I got linked up with an activist who had told me that like an abortion provider was trying to access her clinic. She had a clinic for pregnant migrant moms. And she was like, I just can't let them in, but they're offering like $10,000 to have access to my clinic. I'm like, we need that money, but we can't let them in. And because I know what they're gonna do. A migrant mother who is on the Mexico side waiting for her asylum case, she maybe didn't even become pregnant by her choice, right? And so it's very easy to sell her on an abortion that she actually doesn't want. And so she knew that she couldn't let them in, but she was like, but where are the pro-life groups? Like, where are the pro-lifers who can help us here? And I think New Wave Feminist was in a unique position because we are nonpartisan and we're secular. And so I was like, I don't know if we can raise $10,000, but like, I'll see. We've got this amazing kind of small but mighty army. And so within a month, we raised $45,000. And I was like, oh. Okay.
All through like Facebook and like Facebook.
Dumb memes. That's my biggest fundraising. And so I was like, okay, we have this unique group of people that are all over the spectrum, like religiously, non-religious, atheists, like we have people politically all over the spectrum. And so it really kind of opened up our eyes to this. And so we were supporting this shelter for a while, and then that one ended up closing down. There was, but we would do these summer campaigns. So then COVID happened and people started sending us their stimulus checks, which is like so generous and wonderful. And yet I wasn't seeing them in the bank account. I would get the email about it, but I wasn't seeing them go in the bank account. And I'm like, this is why I shouldn't be in charge of things, y'all. Because that means there is some bank account or some PayPal account that this is going to. Turns out a board member had set it up the year prior for just a campaign. It was a temporary one. We weren't using it. So all of a sudden I look in this account and there's $20,000. And I'm like, well, crap. How are we going to spend this much money at the border? That was the thought.
That's a weird response.
I'd be like, sweet, fabulous problem to have, but it's earmarked for the border. And so I always tell people, I've fallen bass backwards into every single thing, whether it's teen pregnancy caused me to start New Wave Feminist, or accidentally misplacing $20,000, started this next ball rolling. And so we find this money and we're like, well, we have to do some really big stuff because that's so much money. And so and we don't like to keep a lot of money on hand. If you send us money for moms, it goes to moms. I want to get it out there. And so we felt this pressure to spend this money. So we go find this place, and we were going to do a temporary shelter. And the guy's like, it's going to be $4,000 a month. And we're like, cool, we can do it for a couple months and provide all these services for these women. And then in the 11th hour, he goes, actually, I'm not going to rent it to you. You have to buy it. It's $300,000. And I'm like, oh, okay, never mind, sorry. And then Leah goes to Lourdes.
You better give Mama Mary credit for this.
Leah goes to Lourdes and
mother.
Because then we're like, we'll throw it out there. We'll see what sticks to the wall. We'll see if we can raise this money. And so Leah goes to Lourdes and she's like, I went to the grotto, I prayed for your fundraising, and I was like, cool. And
snapped a picture.
And she gave me a bracelet that I have. And so anyway, I'm all married up as an agnostic. But so then
got you covered.
I say I appropriate Catholicism all the time a little bit. Because here's the thing, if I'm gonna acknowledge science and biology, I also have to acknowledge really weird woo-woo stuff that happens with Mary, and there's been so much of it. So she goes and prays, 8 hours later, we have our first meeting with this couple that said they wanted to make a significant donation. So Karina, my partner, and I, she's the one who runs our shelters down there. We put on blazers, we're in pajama pants, like, you know, post-COVID Zoom attire. And we're nervous. This is our first pitch we've ever done, and we're just obviously not professional people. Did I tell you we accidentally found $20,000? So like, so we're sitting there doing this Zoom call, and I'm like, it's probably gonna be like $5,000 or something. So like, if we lose it, it's not a big deal. So the couple's like, well, we want to give you $25,000, and both of us are like, yeah, as you should. We're professional women. That's like a great amount. And they go, but ultimately, we really want to give you $100,000 of a matching donation. And I'm like, why would you trust us with and then the husband goes, what are your plans for fundraising? And I was like, well, memes on Instagram. And we have a newsletter. I'm gonna send that out. So he has us sign this contract that we have until Christmas of 2025. By the way, this is like the end of 2022 or 2023 when this happens. The end of 2025 to match this donation. And I was like, okay, cool. So as we're wrapping up the call, this woman tells me she wrote a book about Lourdes. What are the odds? That's crazy. My friend Leah was just there last night and prayed that we would get money, and now you want to give us money? That's strange. And so I call up this Catholic friend of mine who's super Catholic. All of her kids are named after saints. I'm like, I have a great Catholic story. You're going to love it. And I'm in the Kroger's parking lot with like my kid kicking the back of my seat, and I hear her kids in the background. I'm telling her the story, and then we're about to get off the phone, and she goes, have you matched it yet? And I was like, no, dude, this was 4 hours ago. She goes, let me go ahead and match it. And I said, no, not 10,000, 100,000. And she said, yeah, let me go ahead and match it. And I know her husband, and this is the worst feminist moment. I said, can you talk to your husband? So much money to give me. And so then the second dilemma comes into play where I have to call up this couple, and I'm like, y'all, I am so sorry. Like, I just matched your donation in 4 hours. And so I tell them, and then they're like, I mean, Mary's watching out for you, just saying. And I was like, this is strange. And by the way, everybody's so ticked off at me for not being Catholic, because they're like, you get more stuff from Mary than anybody. And I was like, anybody I know. Hard to get. Then I had another friend, my friend Alex, and he said, you know, if anybody understands the heart of the mothers that you are helping, that you're serving, that are terrified, that are pregnant, that don't know where they're going to give birth and where their child's going to lay their head, like, it's going to be Mary. This makes complete sense to me. And I just thought, that's really true. So then I went and saw the Tilma, and then I got like a Mary tattoo. I don't know if y'all can see it. So anyway.
She's the worst agnostic I know, by the way.
I'm covered in roses today. Anyway, so Our Lady's really helped us out. Somebody called me agnostish recently, and I'm like, yeah, that fits better. I'm agnostish. But, so then we were able to open this shelter in Juarez for pregnant migrant moms. The femicide rate is incredibly high there, so you're incredibly vulnerable to literally being murdered over there. They have these crosses all over the city marking where women's bodies have been found. They have a giant cross when you're passing back into El Paso, which is like railroad spikes on the cross, and it's got the toe tags of all of the women. And a lot of them say, you know, that they're unidentified. We don't even know who these women are because they're incredibly vulnerable when they come to the border. Maybe they haven't talked to their family in a while. They don't even know which port of entry that they're at, that they're claiming asylum. And so when you know these women in particular are very vulnerable, especially mothers, especially, you know, part of the reason I'm very anti-sex work, and that's a whole, I'll bitch about that later, but like, and pornography and all of these things is because I see the results of it. I see these women who, because that global market has been created, somebody on the other side of the world can send $50 to a trafficker in Juarez and do the most horrifically violent, degrading, debasing things to our mothers. And a lot of women would say, no, I'm not gonna do that, kill me. But if you have a child and they say, well, we're gonna kill your kid first in front of you if you don't do it, then you are much more inclined to go along with this. And so if all we can do is offer women safety, safe housing, access to quality prenatal care while they're down there at the border, and then, you know what, take as long as you need. If it takes 6 to 9 months was on average how long women would stay with us until they could go and have their asylum cases processed. Now, a lot of it's more refugee replacement. Like, we don't really know what's happening. We're kind of in this limbo state, but still making sure you have fled your a homeland, a place you love very much. So many of these people love their home countries, but the fear of violence. We had a mom who, her son had a bullet lodged in his head. She needed to get to America for the surgery that it was going to offer because his eyesight was starting to go, and they didn't know at any point if this was going to kill him. So we have people who are experiencing destitution, poverty. They have had children die from malnutrition, and they are pregnant again. And so they're like, I have to get somewhere safe. Like, that maternal heart is so evident in our mothers, and the sisterhood is also so evident. You know, I hear a lot of people say, well, what about bringing in all these migrants? Like, their culture is going to overtake our culture. And I'm like, you wish their culture would overtake. When it comes to the way, as a mom of 4, having my kids in America, it was an experience. It was very isolating, very individualistic, like not having a lot of community support. And then I see the beauty of how our migrant mothers live, and they will nurse each other's children, and they will take care of one another because they have that shared experience of the trauma that they've gone through, and just how beautiful those bonds are, and that we just get to facilitate that. And so I just stand at our shelter with children running by and moms and stuff, and I'm like, thanks, Tom, from MySpace. Like, thanks for making this possible. Like, how did this happen, y'all? It was a MySpace page. I should not be trusted with any of this. And yet, we just keep walking through doors when they're open. And I think that not everybody has to run a shelter. Not everybody has to be able to do what we think are big things. You just have to be willing to answer that call, to talk to that person you don't want to talk to be a little bit uncomfortable, to be obedient to whatever it is, that nudging that you feel, and you will be blown away by the doors that end up opening for you.
Really quick, what's the name of your house?
So we have the Stellar Shelter. It's not Stella.
It's totally Stella.
So it's the Stellar Shelter, and then on the, oh, that's the other thing, a Unitarian church gave us a whole nother one on the other side, and I was like, dang it, we haven't even figured out how to do the first one, now we have 2. So anyway, we have one on both sides of the border, so the other one's Casa Maris, so it's totally Catholic. If you know, you know.
You know, you know. You know, you know. Well, I do want to leave a little bit of time for questions here, because I'm sure people are like perplexed and fascinated by you. But just because I know the story and I just want them all to understand, please tell us your home birth story.
I just told it.
Did you?
Yes, so I had 3 hospital births where I was very medicated. Drugs were fabulous. And on the last one, they messed up my epidural. So then I let the crunchy moms in my neighborhood, which I feel like y'all are crunchy, I let them get to my head. And they're like, hospital births and interventions are terrible. You need to give birth in your living room in a hot tub. And I was like, all right, I mean, this is probably my last one, so might as well. It was my 4th. So I get the hot tub set up. I have candles lit. My husband kept watching Hoarders the whole time, which was really like a weird part of the experience. But it just, I had been super nesting, so I was like, this actually like makes me feel really good about how clean and sterile this environment is. It's very close to hospital. So it's raining like crazy because the moon or something pulls babies out of us. And so it is my due date. I have been induced with my other 3. I thought for sure I was going to get induced with this one, but it's my due date. And all of a sudden I go into labor. And so I call the midwife and she's like, you're fine. It's going to take hours, whatever. And it low-key kind of did. So I'm sitting in the tub, chilling, watching Hoarders. And then my mother's there. And my mother decides to tell the story of my birth back in 1983. And she is talking about how she felt the ring of fire and kept telling the nurse, I have to push. And the nurse was like, oh, sweetie, like, you're not even dilated yet. You're fine. So remember, it's the 80s. It's back when people used to have those really long fingernails. So I come out with this scratch, this like acrylic fingernail scratch on the top of my head because the woman had been feeling my, like I was crowning, and she thought my mom's stories. So my mom had just embodied this experience, like, again, for the first
share
time.
our trauma and pass it on.
So she's telling this while I'm bouncing on a ball, like trying to get rid of contractions. I'm just like, whatever, lady. And so then my midwife finally arrives, my water breaks, definitely thought I gave birth when that happened. It's a very big pop. And I was like, did I do it? Is the baby out? And then she's like, no, you wish. And so she goes to feel for the like head and do like a heartbeat monitor, and she goes, I feel feet. And I was like, that doesn't make sense though, because the sonogram has not shown like feet on his head. So like, it's like, I told you, I'm a little dumb. It took me a second to figure out what was going on. And then she just, the fear washes over. She's like, get out of the tub. So all I've been told by my crunchy mom friends, the reason you want to do this type of birth rather than a hospital birth is because they listen to your body and it's all about your body. So then this midwife's like, stop pushing. And I was like, it's on autopilot. Like, the pushing is happening. Like, sorry. Toothpaste is coming out of the tube, babe. And so my mom Well, first of all, this is the part I think is funny. Midwife's Catholic. She starts saying Hail Marys. My husband starts speaking in tongues. Never heard that before. My mom is like, in Jesus' name, in Jesus' name. She grabs my face. She's like, say in Jesus' name. And I am in so much pain because it's happening. And I'm like, no. I got so mad after. I was like, you made me denounce Christ when I thought I was about to die. Like, how dare you? I grew up Protestant. I love Jesus enough. Like, that was rude of her. Anyway, and then my doula is behind me. And I look up at her and I said, am I about to die? Because everyone's going insane. And she goes, I don't think so. And I was like, you are now the only voice I'm listening to in this room because you're the only non-psycho. So my mom calls the fire department. So, but it's happening. And I'm like, I will be giving birth in front of my whole neighborhood. Like, because we're nosy ass neighbors. Like, if we see a fire truck outside, we all go watch. Like, and so I'm like, they're about to see me give birth on the sidewalk. So I kind of know I need to have this baby really fast. I don't know what any of the fears are with having a footling breech or any of that. My mom, who just embodied her weird experience, when I say I need to push, she grabs my legs and throws them back, and she's like, she's pushing. She tells my midwife this. So my midwife, who had only seen a video of this one time, you have to corkscrew the baby, because I guess the fear is they shudder from the cold, and then it's awful. It's awful, and ruins your stuff, like child contact. It's really just so traumatic. I am so glad I was so uninformed and had no idea that that was even a possibility, because I'm just like, get this baby out of me. And so, being fully present in my body for the first time ever while giving birth, because the other times, high as a kite, janitors coming in, changing the trash cans, I'm like, whatever, I don't care. But this time, I am very present in my body, and amazing, empowering experience. I will say, you know when you see the rocket boosters come off of a space shuttle, when it goes into, that's what it is. That's what I tell people who want to do natural birth. That's what it feels like, the rocket boosters. And I felt the ring of fire, the whole thing. Baby's out. Evidently the cord was wrapped around his neck twice and he was blue. My husband loses his mind because she takes the cord off, touches his foot. She said my husband goes, he immediately just became pink. And so we're good. And I hear him cry. My eyes were closed the whole time and I'm like, I think I'm okay. I think he's okay. Immediately, the entire Richardson Fire Department comes in with muddy boots to my house, and I can't vacuum for 6 weeks, remember, and clean my car. And I'm so frustrated, and they are all surrounding me, and I am very not wearing clothes. Like, very
it is the best birth photo I have ever seen, because she's like, and then the entire fire department is standing behind her.
I know, we should find this. My mom loves the fact that you see the disabled fire alarm at the top, because I burn food all the time.
It's like hanging open.
You see that I don't have like the fire alarm. But the other best picture, and y'all all should do this if you keep having babies. I told my doula, I heard this funny idea that during when your partner, whatever, cuts the cord, to do like a ribbon cutting photo where you're the mayor of your uterus and you're like shaking your hand. And I said, I want to do that. And she goes, dude, when you are having that baby, that's going to be the last thing on your mind, which just solidified it. Oh, I'm doing it. That is the first thing on my mind. My husband sees the blue baby, like all things happen, like everything's happened so fast for him. And I'm like, oh, you're cutting the. So I am just cheesing, huge smile, like doing like mayor of my uterus, like making him take this handshake. My husband is petrified. He just like years were shaved off his life during this experience. It's my favorite photo ever. And I asked him after the fact, what were you thinking in that moment? And he goes, I just kept thinking like, we're gonna have to open a pizza store. And I was like, what does that even mean? And he goes, well, I thought you were gonna die. And I was gonna be a single father and have all these kids. And all I know is there's this one pizza shop, in our town, and it's family owned. You're allowed to employ your kids, like if it's a family owned shop. I just kept thinking like, we're gonna have to open a pizza shop. And I was like, that's what was going on in your head for this picture. It makes me love the picture even more. And now that little weirdo is 13, the one who came out with feet first. Totally good. I realized after the fact how really scary that moment was. But
and some of us deal with trauma through humor.
For sure. It was definitely, I unpacked the birth trauma probably 10 years later, where I was like, oh, that was a scary close call. I will also say, I immediately got up after everyone left. My muddy carpets, I'm still mad about it, but like after everybody left, fire department's gone, I got up and walked back to the bathtub and I did the hippie bath thing where you put the herbs and stuff and you just like slam around with your baby, and I felt so good. And then I was nursing right away and I was like, this was the best birth experience. And nobody believes me when I say that, but like there was something bad when it feels like you just did something really tough and it worked out well. And to this day, I cherish that birth experience. Like, very, very much, because it was very special, and it made me feel like I can do really tough things, like let a baby slip and slide out of me, feet first.
Give it up for Destiny.